I mean, I totally agree. The whilst you have this opportunity, of time, and you don't have all of the answers, there are still conversations that can be had. There's still dialogue. There's still communication there. That can be that can be opened up with people. Because back to your point, Paul, when you say that first point where somebody says there's change coming, and then it goes into a kind of a void of, well, this is what we're going to do, but we don't really know how we're going to do that, and what that really means for everybody. But that's really the opportunity where you really need to start to going out and talking to people about the fact that it is complex. We won't have all the answers. We will be designing this, but there will be information that comes up in these key decision points that may or may not influence the design side of things. So yeah, absolutely. It's and not and it's not just the people that are working within these organizations. It's the residents as well. It's the stakeholders, it's the partners, it's the suppliers. All of these are people and organizations that are impacted by this.
So there you go. Did that answer all your questions?
There's a lot. There's a lot of information there. So, okay, what should local if local authorities are about to kicking things off, or sort of just starting out, what should they be mindful of at the earliest stages? What should they be doing right now to make sure that before they go into that sort of structural delivery side of things, what should they be mindful of? We're talking about capacity, capability, risks. What would good look like in terms of that, the design side of things?
I think one of the sorry,
No, go on, Dom.
I was going to say I think one of the key things is resource, because it's local government, so you can't just stop delivering your services for any period of time. You can't stop collecting the bins. You can't stop your housing. So actually, this is a really complex delivery program. It happens on top of the day job, and so resource is crucial to that. So it's the expertise you've got in your organisation, but also the expertise you need from and capacity in terms of delivery of the work that you need to bring into that organisation as well.
Because my understanding, the expectation is they're going to just, in some places, might just go, well, we'll just get it done along the way ourselves. Is that not possible? Possible?
Well, local governments are, they don't have, endless amounts of money, and typically they're run very lean, and they're already very, very stretched as not just individuals, but just in terms of budgets and so forth. So I think to assume that there would be an absorption of this level of complexity and just the size of the change is potentially setting an organisation up for failure from day one. And typically, and we see this in many change programs, right across the piece in corporates as well, is you typically go to the same people. It's usually the same people that get taken out for change programs, and that there are only kind of a limited number of those people as well. I think one of the aspects that we do need to consider is the fact that whilst you might have the experts internally and maybe augmented with some external capability there as well, you can't take your mind off or your eyes off of the general populace of an organisation, because if there's a vacuum in terms of setting clarity, setting that vision, being just open and transparent with people about communication, they'll fill the void themselves, but there will be that risk that actually you'll end up with people leaving an organisation. So if you've already got a lean organisation, you've got limited budget, you've got huge complex change coming along, and actually you're you're losing people out the side door, you're obviously, depleting that workforce to be able to support this change regardless.
There's also the thing that local government's actually really good at growing its own workforce and developing it and increasing its talents. But along the way, what that means is the people who will quite often be delivering this change have spent most of their working life in local councils, in local government, and there's that issue of having a fresh pair of eyes, having that constructive challenge from the outside looking in, which is, irrespective of capacity, really, really useful as well.
Yeah, and I think that talks into that capability conversation, because for me it comes back a little bit to what's the difference between this and what we normally do in our local government organisation. And we were having that conversation earlier around, local government is good at doing change, or it does a lot of change. But I think for me the big difference is the scale and complexity here, and the fact that it is both structural and human. And the human bit is significant because it's pan-organisational. It's not just one department or one team, it's the whole place. And it's not just the whole place, it's the whole place plus the 2 or 3 other places that are going through that same process. So I think that's where you start to think about, okay, where can we increase our capability, both in terms of the understanding of, we in other government circles I work in, we talk about mega projects and mega programs, and for me this is a mega change. It's kind of, how do we bring in understanding and capability around that mega change? But then also it's about headroom. If we've got a team that are already running pretty much flat out, and then delivering BAU, and then to Louise's point, the side doors open and we lose X number of people from that organisation because of the uncertainty, you're already then running with a depleted organisation. Then you're putting another layer on top of demand or work, and actually quite specialised work in the sense of it is supporting complex change. So you're creating an even bigger gap around capability, and you need to do one or two things. You either need to backfill the people in the roles in the organisation, to release them, to give you local knowledge, a level of capability and definitely capacity, or you need to bring people in who actually can provide both capability and capacity and relevant capability, and probably you end up doing a bit of both. But the big challenge I think around resourcing initially is actually working out or recognising how big that capacity capability gap is going to be. And particularly, you asked about timeline earlier, Wes. I think one of the things that makes this really challenging is most mega programs that we run in government, there isn't really a fixed end date. You pick your poison, HS2, fixed end date, no. We all know the end date's going to slide.
And the budget.
Well, you're back to time, cost, quality, aren't you? It's the iron triangle. But in LGR, we have the 1st of April 2028 is vesting day. And unless there is something, and correct me if I'm wrong, unless there's something very seismic in government's approach to LGR, that is a fixed date. And the lights have to go on that date. So you don't have the comfort, flexibility of thinking, oh, well, we can just, if it all gets too hard, we can shift it out a little bit, which then doubles down on the capacity capability conversation.
It doubles down on that capacity conversation. It also doubles down on rushing, solutions to meet a design, doesn't it?
Yeah.